Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Ismail Abbasi. I'm working as an assistant professor in higher education department in Government of Punjab. Today in this session I would talk about the application of literary theory and analysis of a work of literature through the help of various lenses or perspectives that the literary theory or theoretical frameworks provide us in order to understand the embedded themes or variables in a work of literature. These theories come under umbrella of literary criticism that has two main functions. First one is to analyze, study and evaluate works of literature. Second one is to form general principles for examination of works of literature. Traditional theory, when we see long ago, centuries ago, or decades ago, used to analyze a work of literature on the particular merit which used to see age, time period, historical context, politics of that particular time period, biographical elements of a creator or the writer that were embedded in a work of literature. Critics or publishers used to help the readers by looking at these particular elements in a work of literature. M.H. Abraham points out in The Mirror and the Lamp that any work of literature is evaluated in the light of theory while having these four elements into consideration: the work itself, the artist who creates the work, the universe or the nature that is being imitated in the work, the audience of the work. 20th century brought a kind of revolution where we saw various ideas came into being that saw the merits or qualities of good literature, keeping an open mind and listening to the other point of view can enrich your insights. Research in this way provides various perspectives depending upon the title, the selected hypothesis, the objectives, research questions, research problems, literature review, the gap in the studies, and the framework that would help us in understanding the themes in the section of analysis. So, various theories came into being. First one that challenged the traditional literary theory was formalism. It has the advantage of forcing writers to evaluate a work on its own terms rather than to rely on accepted notions of the writer's work. Works best when applied to a shorter fiction. Why so? Because it has to see the form of a work of literature, the organization of the work of literature, and the structure of the work of literature, the word choice, language, and multiple meaning. So we see that various forms of poetry are in the forms of stanza when created adopt various shapes. For instance, an epic would be entirely different from an ode, which could be different from a sonnet, that could be different from chimeric. So, where these are various types that differ depending upon the nature or the format that follows. Likewise, various types of novels such as epistolary novel differs from that of the Pickers novel, which would differ from that of the historical novel, that would be altogether different from a sci-fi novel, which would be different from digital literature, and that could be different from Gothic literature, and that could altogether be different from romantic fiction. So, depending upon the theme, the writer selects a particular format, and in that particular format, the theme or thematic patterns are themselves very evident. Likewise, word choice and language also play a greater role in developing or understanding multiple meanings embedded in the work of literature. Consider the work in isolation, disagreeing the author's intent, author's background, context, or anything else outside the work is ignored in this particular type of analysis. Only the text remains the focal points, only the understanding of various conflicts inside the text would be the part of the analysis, and all the external forces such as biography of the writer, historical context, age, politics, and all those social elements would be excluded from formalism. Formalism later on give way to the creation of new criticism. The formalist movement began in England with the publication of I.A. Richard's Practical Criticism in 1929. Whereas at the same time, American critics such as John Crow, Ranson, Robert Penn Warren, Kenneth Brooks adopted formalism and termed their adaptation into new criticism. They named it as new criticism. New criticism varied from formalism in that new criticism focuses on image, symbol, and meaning. Traditional formalists often attacked new critics for the lack of attention to the form of the work. Formalists focused on the form and the format of that particular work, whereas new criticism focused on the other element. Seminal works on new criticism include John Crow's Ransom's New Criticism, Kenneth Brooks, The Well Wrought On Impact of Formalism. Today, few critics adhere only to formalist or new criticism theory. However, its back to the basics approach provides many other critical theories. Reader response theory also emerged as a result of new criticism. What does it do? It sees the reader as essential to interpretation of a work of literature. Each reader is unique with different education, experiences, moral values, opinions, taste, and personal choices. Therefore, each reader's interaction with the work is unique, analyzes the features of the text that shape and guide a reader's reading, emphasizes recursive reading, rereading for new interpretation of a work of literature. So here we can see the significance or importance of the reader is extremely valuable, where the reader plays a key role in understanding any work of literature. So, in this way, it developed a reader response theory. Reader response theory has been criticized as being overly impressionistic or guilty of the affective fallacy, too focused on the emotional effects of the work. Less tactful critics have plainly said that it is not intellectual. These attacks resulted in the adaptation of reader response criticism called as reception theory. So, reception theory is applied to general reading public rather than individual reader, because individual reader had formulated various types of opinion that could differ in understanding the work of literature. Each generation has different experiences, values, issues, so therefore each generation would interpret a work of literature in a different context. Therefore, each generation will read a work differently as well. In this way, we could see that Death of Author by Roland Barthes in his published in his book Image, Text and Music played a greater role, where the role of the critics and the publishers was altogether neglected and rejected, and the author's role is also nullified, and the author is considered to be dead author, and the readers are considered alive, like the famous quote of Roland Barthes, that the death of the author must be at the cost of rebirth of the reader, is the critical point in Roland Barthes' Death of Author, which developed the reader response theory to a greater extent. Another type of literary criticism is biographical criticism. It analyzes the autobiography of a writer in a particular context, an author's life in regard to their work. It can enhance the understanding of a work, must be based carefully while understanding a work. Example can be seen from uh, Dr. Faustus's way, where Dr. Faustus in uh, Christopher Marlowe's creation creates certain types of ideas or characteristics that correlate to the life of Christopher Marlowe in the pre-Elizabethan era, where we could see that how these university wits developed a certain type of ideology that reflected the trends of Renaissance in the characters or dramas. Next one is sociological criticism. It maintains that literary work cannot be separated from the social context in which it was created. In general, sociological criticism examines one of these two aspects: condition of production, such as schools, magazines, publishers, and fashions, the applicability of a given work, fiction, especially in studying the dynamics of a given society. So types of sociological criticism that later on helped in development of other literary theories. Sociological criticism is broad, that it can be subdivided into many different categories. Two dominant theories are feminist criticism and Marxist criticism. Feminist criticism grew out of the women's movement that followed World War II. Feminist critics analyzed the role of gender in works of literature. Leading critics Elaine Showalter describes two purposes of feminist criticism: feminist criticism, or critique, the analysis of works by male authors, especially in the depiction of women's writings. Second one is gynocriticism, the study of women's writing. Feminist critics have been responsible for recovering neglected works by women authors through the ages and creating a canon of women's writing. A case in point is Kate Chopin. She was fairly widely published in 1890s, but her work was largely neglected by literary critics until the 1960s, when Chopin was rediscovered by feminist critics. There are various waves, three waves in particular, related to the works of feminism. The first wave that saw or worked or struggled for property rights and right to vote, which was led by white women. The second women or second wave that was led by black women in America, where women of color played a key role. Black arts movement also was the peak time of this particular type of second wave of feminism that challenged gender roles and family roles inside the family or her domestic life and also in social life, how those gender roles propagated or relegated women to the position of marginality. Third wave was more radical in nature, that focused on diversity and identity of women. It also had focus on intersectionality such as race, class, gender, disability, or sexual orientation in a way that challenged women's role that was created by men as a social construct in the society. Second type of social criticism is Marxian criticism. Marxist criticism is based on the social and economic theories of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Their beliefs include the following: value is based on labor, the working class will eventually overthrow the capitalist middle class. In the meantime, the middle class exploits the working class. And last, the most institution, religious, legal, educational, and governmental are corrupted by the middle class capitalist, which Karl Marx called them as bourgeoisie class. And the conflict between proletariat and bourgeoisie continues, and that leads to the exploitation of the proletariat and working classes. It also talks about the superstructure and base model. Base is economy, and the superstructures are all these various institutions such as religion, legal, educational, and governmental, where Karl Marx is of the opinion that base regulates all the superstructure. In a way, economy regulates religion, family system, and all the other socialist system. Marxist critics apply these economics and social theories to literature by analyzing ideologies that support the elite and place the working class at a disadvantage, that result in the creation of class conflict. Marxism or Marxist critics strongly influenced fiction work, particularly American fiction, where in the 1930s, where we see the creation of many works of literature in the backdrop of Marxian criticism. Next one is New Historicism. New historicist critics view literature as part of history and furthermore as an expression of forces on history. New historicism compares literary analysis to a dynamic circle. The work tells us something about surrounding ideologies such as slavery, rights of women, and exploitation of children, and other related issues. Study of ideology tells us something about the work. New historicism takes two forms: analysis of the work in the context in which it was created, analysis of the work in the context in which it was critically evaluated. New historicists assert that literature does not exist outside the time and place and therefore cannot be interpreted without reference to the era in which it was written. New historicism, here readers are influenced by their culture, so no objective reading of a work is possible that is done in formalism or new criticism or in reader response theory. Therefore, this type of analysis allows the embedding of historical elements. Critics should consider how their own culture affects their interpretation of the historical influence on a work of literature. Next one, the important type of literary criticism that developed into a literary theory is psychoanalysis. The psychoanalytical criticism analyzes literature to reveal insights about the way the human mind works. It is based on works of Sigmund Freud and his disciple. It works well as a method of analyzing characters, actions, and motivations. Basic concepts that are called as Freudian concept and on the name of Sigmund Freud. All actions are influenced by the unconscious. Human beings must repress many of their desires to live peacefully with others. Repressed desires often surface in the unconscious, motivating action. So here the mind has three major areas of activity. First one is known as id. It is the area in the unconsciousness that works for the gratification through the pleasure principle. Second one is superego. It is an internal sensor bringing social pressure to bear on the id. And the third one area in is the unconsciousness that mediates among demands of the social pressure, id and superego. So in a way the conflict of the mind occurs between id and superego that results in the suppression of ego as a result. Next one related to the psychoanalysis is mythological approach. It is largely attributed to Carl Jung, a disciple of Sigmund Freud. It developed archetypes, a model or pattern from which all other things of a similar nature are made. Mythological approach, it is collective unconsciousness. There are certain basic and central images and experiences that are inherent in the human psyche. It analyzes what in a work evokes a similar response in people regardless of culture. It is concerned with enduring patterns and how they are reflected in literature. Examples of archetypes, there are some common themes: stories of quest and initiation, descents into the underworld, ascents into heaven, search for father and mother, fall from innocence. So we human beings have created certain models in the history, such as in the form of Adam, in the form of Christ, in the form of Muhammad, peace be upon him, or in the form of many other saints. People have created these models, and these models are followed and adopted by the people, and they are considered as archetypes in history. And every culture has various archetypes related to their own culture, values, traditions, and other particular norms that they follow. Examples of archetypes are scapegoat, hero, villain, outcast, temptress, mother, father, and mentor. Next one, the important concept or theoretical underpinning that developed as framework and theory is postcolonialism. It is the study of the consequences of colonialism and imperialism, and some of its themes include national identity and identity crisis, conquest and anti-conquest. Postcolonialism also talks about the process of decolonization, which is a productive result of postcolonial critique that aims to transform norms and institutions to be more just and to be more inclusive in nature. It also talks about cultural identity and hybridity. The blending of indigenous and colonial culture often creates new and unique and complex identities in the people of colonized orientation, where hybrid characters are created that take the characteristics of both the cultures. It also talks about other concepts such as othering, when the marginalization of the people of colonized background is occurred, and when they are othered or sidelined, diasporic people uh, who reside in the former colonies, and they have their certain issues there, that is double consciousness and mimicry as well, because these mimic individuals, they want to follow the colonial masters path and their shoes, but the colonial masters do not allow, and as a result they develop a kind of mimic identities. So concepts covered by the themes of conquest and anti-conquest and national identity, social justice, emancipation, and democracy. These ideas invoked to oppose oppressive structure of racism that resulted in creating marginalized or sidelined races, decolonized groups or communities. So post-colonial criticism sees all these and many other concepts related to these, such as nationalism or appropriation or abrogation or subaltern studies, that we would talk in an other session. Other contemporary theories are related to the literary theories, are discourse studies that include discourse analysis or critical discourse analysis or feminist discourse analysis. They also include structuralism and post-structuralism, where structures are evaluated, and post-structuralism challenges all those binary opposition and resulting in the creation of new types of structures or deconstruction, as Derrida would call it, the creation of new identity. Likewise, literary theory incorporates modernism and postmodernism, where we see that how modernist philosophy is developed on the basis of binaries, and that postmodernism destroys all those binaries and creates the kind of chaotic situation which reflects the life of contemporary age, where everything is in a kind of chaotic disorder. There are various current trends in feminism as well, such as Marxist feminism or ecofeminism or psychoanalytical feminism or radical feminism or materialistic feminism or socialist feminism or subaltern feminism or post-colonial feminism. And the literary theory incorporates all these types of feminism. There is also the study of ecological criticism, and we see that how ecological criticism talks about various ideas such as ecocentrism or anthropocentrism or biocentrism or ecological imperialism or environmental justice or neurocultures, ecological consciousness or Gaia theory or ecological citizenship or sustainability, that I would talk in another session in detail. There are certain race theories that are related to various races in various areas, such as Maoris in New Zealand or Aborigines in Australia or Native American tribes in America and Canada, and likewise African American tribes in America or other European countries, and likewise all the other communities such as Hispanic or Asian or other various communities that are seen or that or are available, and their issues are discussed in these particular race related theories. There is queer theory as well. Queer theory relates to the problems of gender and especially lesbian and gay people, and where their issues are discussed. There are tech studies and digital humanities, where we see the application of digital genre, and where we see that how Twitterature, Twitter fiction, or Insta poetry, or all these network fiction or connected fictions that occur, and where narratives or meta narratives take place, and these other genres that are under development in digital humanities, that are part and parcel of this particular uh, work of literature, that I would talk in another session in the coming days. So stay tuned, stay happy, and stay blessed. If you have any question, any query, you can reach me out in the comment section. I would be happy to oblige, and I would be able to guide you further related to my knowledge, and we would be able to learn from each other if you have any feedback or any comment. So stay happy and make others happy. Allah Hafiz and take care.